hello there. Hello there, hello there, friends and lovers, and thank you for joining us.
Hello.
And happy spring.
Springtime.
Spring has sprung. Happy March 21st, 2021. This is 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir, and we are glad you are here.
Yes, we are.
Today is Sunday, March 21st, the 80th day of the year. 285 days left in 2021. 285 days left to make this your best year ever. A few people have already started on that.
Good.
We're going to have to give a few shout-outs. 279 days until Christmas. 274 days until Halloween. Halloween. Around here, it's Halloween all year. We keep the spirit of Halloween past, present, and future. 14 days until Easter Sunday.
Yeah.
So we hope you're ready to resurrect your hopes for the future. When the whole world honors Amy's birthday eve. That's right. This year, Easter is the day before Amy's birthday.
I am going to be 148 years old.
That's right.
Yes.
Why on earth is my tablet making those noises? That's right. I've got to bring up the
because it
chat here.
Loves to play that music.
Yeah, well, the chat is definitely one of my favorite parts of the show. Is the stuff that y'all out there say to the folks in here. Too much fun. And it is March 21st on this date. Well, first of all, it's World Poetry Day. And I read a piece of poetry a couple weeks ago.
Yes, you did.
On Robert Frost's birthday. But I think for World Poetry Day, I'm going to go back to the well, and that's the Berton Braley well.
Nice.
In the past, we've read several Berton Braley pieces, the really common ones, his poems on success. And he had another one called Essential that was about specifically ambition. We've talked about ambition before, so this will be fun. Except, of course, it's Berton Braley, who was a very playful poet. And so he refers to ambish, which...
Wait, what?
Ambish.
Ambish.
Ambish. He kind of abbreviates the word.
All right.
Ambition. Well, you'll see what I mean here. Let me read this real quick. On World Poetry Day, you'll never get anywhere, never do anything, never be anyone much. No honor or fame will accrue to your name. You'll never have wealth in your clutch unless you go striving for, doggedly driving for, seeking the thing that you wish. How do some guys manage to rise? Take it from me, it's ambish. Although you have cleverness, brains, and ability, plenty of deftness and skill, the thing that you need, if you hope to succeed, is courage and power of will. Without pertinacity, all your capacity leaves you a failure, poor fish. How do the great get to that state? I've got the answer. Ambish. You'll hear it called restlessness, wanton irreverence, discontent, lunacy too. But it is the force that alters life course and makes the world over anew. The one irrepressible, strange and unguessable, cosmic, unwavering wish. How do we climb out of the slime? You tell him, buddy. Ambish.
So, ambish is not just for fish.
Oh, so good, Berton Braley. Incidentally, I have to say, when I went searching for this piece of poetry, it's not posted correctly on the BertonBraley.com website.
Oh, really?
The last few lines are simply missing. The last 4 lines of the poem are not there, so I need to get in touch with the folks at BertonBraley.com. Do you know where I found this complete? When I realized it was missing part of it?
Where did you find it?
I did a Google search, and sure enough, it came up at romanticrealism.com. Do you know what romanticrealism.com is?
It's a very old website from the 90s.
It is the Quent Cordair Fine Art Gallery's old website. So sure enough, all roads lead back to Quent Cordair Fine Art. Of course, nowadays folks know to just go to Cordair.com.
Cordair.com, you mean?
So I got to call out Linda and Quent because they made it possible for me to read that.
Thank you.
Complete poetry, including the last 4 lines, on World Poetry Day. It's also Crunchy Taco Day.
Oh, ooh.
Do you need an excuse to have tacos tonight? No, you don't, because we believe we've got the ambition to choose our own meals. But if you do need a little nudge, it is Crunchy Taco Day. Maybe that's what we'll do. We haven't planned dinner yet.
That's true.
And we're on the East Coast, so it's 6 o'clock. We should be thinking about that.
That's right. Oh, what's the title of that again? Jim is asking.
Essential.
Essential.
Essential. I don't know why it's called essential other than ambition is the essential attribute.
Okay.
Berton Braley.
Essential by Berton Braley.
That's right. And within 10 minutes after the show wraps up, it will be posted in the show notes. Actually, links to all three of the Berton Braley pieces that we have read in the past. So the Thinker and The Will to Win. Some people call that one Success. It has two different titles. And then this one, Essential. Good stuff. Links will be in the show notes. Also on this date, we celebrate several birthdays. For example, Roger Hodgson of Supertramp turned 71 today. He's still out there rock and rolling. Gary Oldman, who, of course, is Jean-Baptiste Emmanuel Zorg in the movie The Fifth Element. I'm sure that's the first thing everybody thought of when they thought of Gary Oldman, even though he's been in everything.
Mm-hmm.
Although, of course, in this family, Sirius Black is the first role that comes to mind for the great Gary Oldman. Turned 63 today. Also, today's birthday, Albert Kahn.
Albert Kahn.
Albert Kahn, the architect of Detroit.
Oh, right, Albert Kahn.
Albert Kahn,
Yes.
born in 1869 in Runen, Kingdom of Prussia.
Wow.
When Germany, the German Empire, still had these various kingdoms that were part of Germany. Albert Kahn was born in Prussia. Albert Kahn designed the Ford River Rouge complex.
Yes, and many other things, too.
His firm, in 1937 alone, designed 19% of the designed 19% of the factories in the United States. What I meant to say was the factories that were architect designed.
I see.
There were some factories that were built using old architecture because they're just factories. But of the firms that were architecture designed, his firm designed 19% of them across the United States.
Wow.
Even though he's associated so closely with Detroit. He designed the Packard plant.
Mm-hmm.
He designed the Ford Highland Park plant. He designed the Edsel and Eleanor Ford home, which, if you're in Southeast Michigan, is a great tour to go on.
Yes, it is.
Beautiful buildings and properties. He designed the Dearborn Inn,
Yep.
the world's first airport hotel. Albert Kahn, birthday today. Albert Kahn made one mistake, which might not have been a mistake, but we'll be talking about mistakes today. Oh, he also designed the Fisher Building.
When you were trying to say factory instead of architecture, Linda's like, are you making mistakes, Robert?
I am making mistakes. Albert Kahn made a mistake. In 1925, Albert Kahn went to the Soviet Union and designed some factory buildings for the Soviets. And yes, I've made some mistakes as well going through that. And there will be more, I'm sure, before we are done. But bear that word mistakes in mind. Anybody who's read the previews knows we're going to be talking about that. What are we listening to this week?
My own talk from 10 years ago.
Amy's been listening to her own talk from 10 years ago. If you look on YouTube, you can find it. Maybe I'll put the link in the notes. Her talk on making mistakes, yes. Well, I have to say, I have not been listening to any new podcasts or recordings this week, other than the usual kind of light stuff that I do. But I have been listening to Clubhouse talks, and I do have a couple of exciting announcements.
Excellent.
The Ayn Rand Center UK held its first meeting announcing a series of new Clubhouse shows. I mentioned last week they're starting this station on Clubhouse called Radio Ragnar. And included in the first 5 early birds is my Wednesday night show. So there will be a Wednesday night Clubhouse show available to all of you with iOS devices because they haven't managed to make an app yet for Android. But anybody who's got an iPhone or an iPad or an iPod that's running iOS, you can fire up Clubhouse and listen to me. And it looks like Amy will be joining me.
Yes, I will.
So I will have a co-host for that show as well. 8 o'clock Wednesday nights. That's midnight UK time. That's important because when UK changes their time, so will we, which means they'll still be midnight UK time, but we'll be at 7. But this week, 8 o'clock, The name is to be determined, and this is why I mention it. I have a post on Facebook.
So it's not actually called To Be Determined.
It's not called To Be Determined. It might be. I haven't decided yet, because that's to be determined. But I need your vote for the name of the show. Now, the show is going to be similar to the 5-minute show, but it's going to be even more of a focus on optimism, benevolence, and a little more Ayn Randy stuff, a little more objectivism.
Mm-hmm.
And my focus is on, and I mentioned this on a previous post, why objectivists, more than anybody else, so far from being the dour, fatalistic, kind of complainy, kind of over-concerned about everything that's wrong in the world, folks. Objectivists should be the most optimistic. Objectivists should be the most success-oriented.
Mm-hmm.
Objectivists should be the happiest, but they should also be the most benevolent, the most generous, the most gracious. Objectivism is a philosophy for living on Earth. If anybody knows how to live on Earth, it should be us. So, more and more of that on the Wednesday night show. The titles that I've been brainstorming are names of the show now. And in the chat, let us know if any of these resonate with you, if you think this is what the Wednesday night show should be called. Incidentally, there's a good chance this show will go to 5 days a week, but we're starting off slow.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to save my voice for the primary show, which is this show with you guys. 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir. With Amy Nasir.
Yes.
So, brainstorming, real quick. Put in your vote. Tell me what you think. A couple people already have. Thank you. Oh, I forgot to mention. Speaking of birthdays, one of the people who's already voted is John. John P., thank you for voting. Happy birthday to you. Big shout out. You the man.
Yes, you're going to correct all the things on your birthday.
No, he's only a corrector when somebody says something wrong.
Oh, okay.
And that's only like 90% of the time. So,
So there's no preemptive correcting except for 90% of the time.
well, we honor him especially today because we're doing a show on making mistakes.
There you
And
go.
we're not saying, hey, mistakes are okay. You know, there's more to it than that. Incidentally, speaking of John, there's another John, Ron
Yes.
Toole, John H.
Yes, John H.
is also celebrating his birthday today.
Well, not today, but a couple days ago.
Oh, that's right, a couple days ago
Yeah.
on St. Patrick's Day, right?
No, Thursday, the 18th.
Thursday the 18th. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I was wrong. I made a mistake on both of the dates I thought were right for that, but happy birthday, John H. as well.
Yes.
Real quick, okay, now that I've distracted myself twice, potential titles, Wednesday night show, a show called Passion.
Passion.
Just passion.
Mm-hmm.
Wisdom.
Wisdom.
Benevolence.
Benevolence.
Okay, those are all the one-word titles.
All right.
Life on Earth.
Life on
This
Earth.
is a philosophy for living on Earth.
Yes.
Wake Up Twice.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I kinda
actually
like that.
related to a potential book title that I've got some rough notes on.
Mm-hmm.
Wake Up Twice.
I like that.
Living on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like Life on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Objectivist Passion.
Ooh, objectivist passion.
That was actually a suggestion somebody gave me.
That's cool. No, that's cool.
Values are primary.
Mm-hmm.
That was more like a sentence, so it doesn't really work for a title, but it's my running theme. Values are primary.
Yeah.
It's the reason for optimism. The Wise Objectivist. That was the second one that somebody recommended.
Okay.
The Wise Objectivist. Reason for Optimism.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's kind of almost like stolen from John Drake, who has a blog called Reason for Success.
Yes, and he is awesome. John Drake is wonderful.
He is, but it's a great double meaning. You know, there is reason for optimism, and reason is for optimism. Reason, if you're rational, you're optimistic. The next one is reasonable optimism.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I use the word reasonable a lot because sometimes when people say reason or rationality, they're a little floating. By saying reasonable, we stay grounded. So reasonable optimism. Only two left here, and then we'll get on with the show. Kindred Spirits with Robert Nasir. Wednesday night show title, Kindred Spirits with Robert Nasir. And then the last one is Positivity and Optimism with Robert Nasir.
Mm-hmm.
So if any of those
Let
kind
me
of
have that.
resonated with you, if any of those sounded like, yeah, that's what you should call the show, let us know what you think. Thank you for that. Thank you for letting me distract you with that totally personal thing that has nothing to do with this show, but my gosh, this is going to be fun. Doing an audio-only radio style, but back and forth, conference call, and other people talking back. Everybody who's on our chat right now but wishes you could be on the mic, there's your opportunity. Join us on Wednesday night.
And I'm going ahead and putting in these names here. So if anybody wants to be on the Facebook chat and put little hearts next to the ones that you like the best.
Is that how they're going to vote, is by putting a heart on it?
Yeah, or like, or however.
Oh, okay. Good. Thank you. Yeah, the first topic, incidentally, will be optimism, objectivism, and why objectivists should be leading the way in encouraging success, flourishing, benevolence, graciousness, and happiness. So there's the first topic. This Wednesday night, it's going to be a total rant. Total, like, what the hell is wrong with you people? Why are you miserable all the time? You know, my usual style.
And I'll be like, Robert, calm down.
Yes, I'm sure it'll be just like that.
So that's really exciting news, Robert. I really like it.
Yes.
Yeah, my suggestion was reasonable optimism.
Reasonable optimism was yours. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I like Kindred Spirits with Robert Nasir, though. That's really nice.
Well, last week, as I hinted but didn't really share explicitly on the last episode, last week I made a change to my routine.
Oh, what's this?
Now, the fact that Amy doesn't know what that was tells you how successful it was. I should say, rather, that I failed to make a change. See,
you tried?
I tried. I committed to a new schedule, waking up promptly at 6 a.m. every morning.
All right.
You may have noticed I actually have an alarm clock running these days.
Yes.
So, waking up 6 a.m., completing a wake up twice cycle, which refers to my title, Wake Up Twice. More on that in the future. Getting in one area of exercise, and it would just be, arms, legs, abs, TTF, train to failure. Then showering and starting the remainder of the day promptly at 8 a.m. So that sounds great to me. How did I fail? What was my mistake? Well, among other things, and there are several, the primary failure was that I didn't write out my plan. This massive shift, this empowering life change relied wholly on disparate notes in my daytimer and a few post-it notes and a plan that existed purely in my own head. Now, you've heard me say before, one of the keys to making things objective is get them out in the world. Get them out of your head, down on paper. And so I would like to acknowledge right here, right now, I failed. I screwed up. I knew better, but I did not act better. I just had myself convinced I could do it all with what was in my head and those bits that were out there in the world. And
Yes.
I could offer a series of excuses, all of which have some basis in reality, but none of which are fully exculpatory. If I'm even using the word exculpatory right.
How would you define that?
It means to culpator something. So...
You mean unculpator somebody because you're exculpatoring?
Well, that's a good question. And
give us a shout out of the definition in the chats, folks.
Yes, ask. Let me know if I'm using exculpatory, as in. Well, I can't really give a synonym for it because it seems like the only right word for this. The point is, none of my excuses really excuse me. None of them are fully exculpatory, and really, I have less excuse than most people. Because more than most people, I know better. I have spoken on this podcast before about that. I have lectured about this before. So what have I lost from this mistake? Why should I care that I screwed up? And what I've lost was a little self-respect, sort of on a temporary basis. I wouldn't say it goes too deep,
Aww.
but I feel kind of bad that I didn't live up to my own, not just my beliefs, but my standards. Obviously, I've lost some credibility with the 5 Minutes audience, and I will be working hard. Why are you laughing? This is serious business.
What was your mistake again?
That I made a change to my schedule, a change to my routine.
And then you didn't stick
but
with
I
it.
didn't stick with it because I
Got it.
didn't write it down. I didn't write
Gotcha.
down the plan.
Okay.
I didn't properly execute because I didn't properly plan. You know?
Got it.
Failing to plan is
Well,
planning to fail.
If you tell me about it, then I can help you.
I didn't bring in an accountability partner. That's right.
Yes.
I also didn't do
I'm all
that.
for accountability partners, as you know.
Yes.
That's really the only way I can do anything. Well, at home, in a pandemic, working from home when I have no work-life balance. That's the way to do it. And by the way, exculpatory comes from the Latin word meaning freed from blame.
Yes, it does actually
So
mean what I thought it meant.
Blameless.
Even though I didn't have a definition on the tip of my tongue. Did you want to give us that definition you just looked up, or did you already close the window?
Oh, I already closed the window, but
Okay.
it's freed from blame.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the definition was really good because it did say cleared of guilt, and that was good because that's exactly what I meant, is that my excuses aren't exculpatory. I knew better. So yes, number one, I think it's important to acknowledge the mistake, and I hope I've done that. Number two, I was asking myself, well, what have I lost? What did that cost me? It's important to come to terms with that, and it's a little guilt, a little shame, a little embarrassment, I guess would be the lighter word to use.
Yeah.
Possible loss of credibility. And what have I gained from the mistake? Anytime I ask what have I lost, I then ask, well, what have I
What
gained?
did you learn? Mhm.
Well, learned comes at the end, but what I've gained is the motivation to do better,
Yes.
and the insight that at least I know I was right in the first place, and I really should have planned it. And that's good. That's a good thing to know, because I'm just smart enough. You know, I'm not a genius. I think you need an IQ of 150 to be a genius. And I'm not quite there. But I am smart enough that I can often outsmart myself. It's one of my great planning and organizing weaknesses that I've been able to achieve quite a lot without writing stuff down or without planning well. And then, of course, I fall short, because you do need to do those things no matter how smart you are. You could be 10 times smarter than me, and you still need that. So what I've gained is the reinforcement of that insight. So, acknowledge the mistake, number one. Number two, what have I lost? Number three, what have I gained? Number four, how shall I make a graceful recovery? Shall I do it? How shall I do it privately? I will make a plan, and I will write it down. And what I'll be able to do is add to that plan what this week's failings added to what I would have written a week ago. How shall I make this recovery publicly? Well, I'm going to talk about it on the show. And maybe other people have been in a similar situation and will say, oh, yeah, I've been there, and what I did was this. Or maybe they're in a similar situation now and they're thinking, yeah, maybe Robert's right, and I should write this stuff down and have a proper plan and not.
Well, how do you make amends to yourself?
Well, that was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
Under number 4 here, the fourth step is, which, if any, necessary apologies or recompense do I need to make?
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a good one for insights, because apologizing to yourself will seem like a strange thing.
Mm.
And even more than that, recompense, compensating yourself will seem like an even stranger thing. And it becomes more of a thought experiment than something specific that you do. But ask yourself, if I was approached by somebody else who had made the mistake that I made, what would I tell them, and what would I expect from them? How would I expect them to make up for that? What recompense would I expect? What damages did that person do, in this case, to themselves, and how should they make up for that? You know, I said before, you should treat yourself as well as or better than you treat other people.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing applies here. So I realize I owe myself. I deserve a better plan. I deserve success in this.
Yes, you do.
And I need to make it up to myself by achieving that success and enjoying the rewards of this updated, better schedule I'll be following.
But in the meantime, do you beat yourself up?
Depends on what you mean by beat yourself up.
Yeah.
Do I wallow? No.
No. Okay. All right.
Do I just beat on myself for no reason other than I feel angry or guilty? No.
Okay.
No.
So no.
I give
hair
myself
shirts
only
or-
as hard a time as I really deserve.
No hair shirts.
No hair
or
shirt, no
flogging.
churning, no self-flagellation, no.
Ah.
Yeah, and then at least on my list of steps to take, number 5, the last one, is what have I learned from this mistake?
Yes.
And that's where I go more to not so much what am I going to do differently next time, but what are the actual knowledge? Reminder of the Crow epistemology. There's only so much you can carry in your head. It reminded me of David Allen's Getting Things Done, which is all based on that same idea that planning and organizing is not well done in your head. You shouldn't store stuff like that in your head. You should get it out on a calendar. Your mind is good for thinking, not for storing things, and especially not for storing future obligations. Get them out on a calendar, get them out on a trusted system. In this case, part of what I learned are things I already know, but I learned that I actually have to do what I know. I can't get away with shortcuts.
Right. Well, yeah, and I know I didn't have a smoothie yet today, but I have done, gosh, I don't know, the last couple of weeks, at least 95% of the days. In the last couple of weeks, I'd
be surprised if you even missed one day a week. You've even done them on weekends.
Oh, absolutely. I still have yet to make one today because I ran out of fresh kale. Fresh kale. But I've been doing really great with smoothies for breakfast, so that's very, very good. Although I'm still trying to incorporate other things, like healthy snacks. Hey, if anybody has any healthy snack ideas, please put them in the comments either on YouTube or on Facebook. And also Sam chimed in with a couple of other alternatives for your new show title, The Passion of Ayn Rand's Advocates. That's kind of cool. And the Benevolent Universe podcast.
The Benevolent Universe podcast.
Very nice. Thank you, Sam.
That kind of rolls off the tongue like the Benevolent Universe premise. That's good.
Yeah, I like that.
That is good. So I know you've got a little more expertise in picking this topic apart because you've given talks, and you've done it more than once, on the subject of making mistakes.
I have. I've done it, 3 times, something like that.
And I know you have your old notes handy. Are there any insights you would like to share with us?
Well,
that you're ready to share with us.
Before I do, Jim on the Facebook chat, he's like, Jim Carrey and Liar Liar. He says,
yes. He says, no, Jim, no doing this. No Jim Carrey and Liar Liar.
No, Jim. And he says, I'm kicking my ass, okay? And he kicks his ass. And
there's a similar scene in the film. This is Spinal Tap.
Yes.
And when the band's promoter has failed to get them a gig and is feeling guilty, and he's like,
he
bends
around
over and, come on, kick my ass, make me feel better. Yes. Yeah, none of that here. We will not have that.
And Chris here says, it is written somewhere, thou shalt not kale.
I agree with that.
I guess I'm a sinner.
Amy is able to do the kale thing, and she's not doing kale like a guy would do kale, like, well, you can put a little on my salad and I'll just add some extra dressing. No, she's putting kale in her smoothies, and she's mixing it in with otherwise good things like fresh fruit and
soy milk.
Well, I don't know about soy milk.
And medjool dates.
Yeah, dates
you love
and fruit,
dates.
And strawberries and blueberries and
dates.
bananas and kale.
And ground flaxseed. Deliciousness.
I know it's all good, but
I gotta say, the other day I did 23 push-ups.
23
in a row without stopping,
Amy,
like on my toes and stuff.
Amy may be at the point where she can do more push-ups than me.
Yeah, with good form.
I've
got some guns.
Last time I went down, it was like 22 and then 20, and see, that's because I didn't get my morning workout routine going.
Right.
It's because of
That's
this big
true.
mistake that I made this week that I will resolve from the insights from this episode.
Jim says, nevertheless, Robert, you are absolved,
exculpated
from great responsibility for screwing up.
Well, that's good. See,
Thank you.
Jim's got me covered here. Apparently, I somewhere in my youth or childhood, I must have done something good to pre-make up for it. We've talked about that before. We did an episode on unconditional love.
Yes.
In which we pointed out that unconditional love is a ridiculous concept, but what most people mean by it is that you have pre-earned forgiveness, that you have already been so good and done so much that although people won't hold you blameless and say, yeah, go ahead and screw up, they will say, hey, it's okay. It's a minor thing compared to your virtues.
Right.
So hopefully I've got a little bit of that going on for me. But
I think so.
But we'll see, next week if I don't really turn it around. Guilt is one of those things where it piles on if you don't straighten it out.
Right.
If you don't correct your course, you end up wildly off course.
And then you get into a funk, and then you start believing, I'm no good.
I'm just not good enough. Yeah. And,
but I want to give a shout out to Linda Cordair of Cordair.com, fine art, Quent Cordair, fine art, for her suggestion for baked kale chips.
Kale chips. You've done the baked kale before.
Which are delicious. Honestly, and, there's some sort of magic involved where you put a little olive oil and salt on them, maybe some garlic powder, something like that. You bake them for 15 minutes under 400 or something, and then they come out and they taste all buttery and delicious. I don't understand.
I don't understand either. I think I'm immune to that kind of magic.
And Chris says, I can do one push-up if I start from the top. Okay, all right. So this was 10 years ago. I put together this really amazing, I'm saying it's amazing. I'm giving myself some real credit because this was a really long lecture that I did at the Chicago Minicon in 2011.
Well, just the ability to look back at something you wrote 10 years ago and say, this is amazing, is pretty awesome.
It's pretty awesome, actually.
Because I certainly am highly critical of my own past writings.
And so this was something that I did, in front of a bunch of people there at the Chicago Minicon. It was my very first public speaking outside of school or anything like that, right? And this was, kind of in the beginnings of GlowCon, or Great Lakes Objectivist Conference, and encouraging other people to speak. And so I'm like, I'm going to be a speaker, except that most of it I kind of read out loud, which
I'm a big fan of.
It's not that bad. It's not that bad. So there's actually 4 videos. It's a lecture in 4 videos on YouTube, and we'll post those links soon here in the show notes. So I'm going to basically share with you just some things that are in that lecture that would be nice. And I need to tell you all that I'm not going to give every definition in the world. It's not going to be very thorough. I do go into it so much more thoroughly in my lecture. So,
well, yeah, you're just taking a few minutes here, and this was an hour and a half talk. It was great.
And I basically took this and I did a workshop at AtlasCon, the Atlanta Objectivist group. And that was more of a workshop about getting people to reveal mistakes that they made, and me sharing my mistakes that I've made and what I've done, and what do I say to myself when I introspect. But I'll get to that in just a minute. So basically, we all know what mistakes are. Mistakes can run from, I left my car keys in the house, or whatever, and now I have to climb through the window and get them because it also has my house keys on it. Things like that, to accidentally bumping into somebody, to being at work and all of a sudden you realize that you made a really major error in something, and you're thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, what am I going to say? Should I come clean about this, or should I try to brush it under the rug? Or so we all have these moments where we have to call upon our virtues of honesty and integrity and courage to get through these moments of making mistakes. And so basically they come in many contexts and everything. Some mistakes are awful. Some are pretty bad, especially if you say nothing. Hit and run car accidents, for instance. Whoops, I backed into somebody in the parking lot. I'm not going to leave a note. I'm just going to drive away. Things like that are getting into a little bit more darkness, you could say. Things that are harmful to you. And I've, talked more philosophically in this lecture about honesty and your and one's relationship to reality, and being on good terms with yourself, being on good terms with other people, being on good terms with what's real, what the facts of reality are. So if you did bump into somebody's car, that's a fact. And you're going to feel some emotional pain of embarrassment and guilt. And if you don't resolve that, and if you don't, put your name and number or something, on their windshield or whatever you need to do to make amends. You're going to feel some major consequences down the line. And on top of that, it's going to skew your relationship with reality and your own relationship with your own consciousness. And you're going to when you get away with something, you're basically, you're warping your sense of reality. And, Robert's laughing at something in the chat.
I'm just updating, because usually you're the one reading the chat. And while you're talking, I'm keeping an eye on it. But Jennifer is being too funny. I think you've already seen some of these.
Thank you, Jennifer. I love you too. So if you ignore it and let it fester and you leave the scene without doing anything, and you look back and you're really sad about it, and you're ashamed of yourself even more than if you had the courage to actually do something and make amends at the time. So it's really important when you do this to make sure you are careful in your own mind and have a good relationship with yourself, and that you're honest with yourself first before anybody else. And so you don't want to be warping your sense of reality, getting away with it, and then have a habitual way of evasion in your own mind. Having evasion as a habit. Evasion is basically putting something out of your mind, evading, what's real, evading those feelings, evading, the guilt that you do feel. So when you
don't want to shut down your own mind.
Right. You don't want to. I'd much rather get in trouble with somebody else. I'd much rather be in jail than start feeling like I can't trust my own mind, or I can't trust other people, or I have this sense of unease and self-loathing and doubt, chronic doubt or something like that in life. That's not a good thing, right? Right. Right. That's a terrible way to exist as a human being. You want to be honest, and you want to respect the facts of reality, including the fact of reality that you have an emotion. That emotion is going to be painful, and it may be sadness and guilt and all that stuff. And you may assume the worst of other people if you go up to them and say, "Hey, I'm so sorry, but I hit your car." You have to work through those. And how do you work through those? In your own mind, you introspect.
Yeah,
we've talked about this a lot on the show, about journaling, introspecting, and being honest with yourself, being upfront with yourself, and doing the same for other people. So, not only are you disrespecting other people if you're not honest, you're disrespecting yourself and your relationship to reality, and your ability to perceive reality. You're disrespecting that function, which is called reason. Some of you all know. So, okay, I've covered that part. There's a really nice quote.
I love some of your quotes.
These quotes are really nice. So Mary Pickford, who was a silver screen actress, Mary Pickford, she had a really nice, and she was a really great lady. You should look up her biography. She was a really interesting person. Her quote is, if you have made mistakes, even serious ones, there is always another chance for you. What we call failure is not the falling down, but the staying down.
Well, we've used that quote many times.
Yes.
And it's been credited to just about everybody.
Well, I think it was Mary Pickford who first said it, but I don't know, maybe.
But certainly John Wayne said, the problem's not the falling down, it's the staying down.
I think Mary Pickford came before him. Maybe,
yes,
I don't know.
She did.
I don't know. So,
yes, she did.
So what makes a mistake helpful to us or not is whether it is first admitted. So what? Mistakes can be helpful? How is this? So what you do is, again, you introspect. You ask yourself, well, what's helpful about re-examining the fact that I hit somebody's car while I was backing out of the parking lot? Well, you next time just be a little extra careful. in the parking lot. Look both ways first. Come out much slower than you were. Just check until you can kind of reestablish that that lesson. I know I have not been driving that much, and yesterday I had a real crash course of about 3 hours of driving on the freeway when I haven't driven in I don't know how long. So I was extra careful and made sure that I didn't make any mistakes, but extra conscious of what I was doing. So this comes to a fork in the road, and which I've already kind of alluded to. There's two kinds of mistakes here. There's an honest mistake. Whoops, I didn't see your car there. Whoops, I left my keys in the car in the office or whatever. Or whoops, I accidentally sent that email, or I did whatever. If it's an error of knowledge, or it could be an error of focus, but it's not a situation where it's a mistake that's built upon evasion, and it's not a mistake that you've made where you have a habit of then just evading your mistakes. When you have an error of knowledge, you can go back and you can actually fix it. You can make amends, you can do whatever you need to do to fix it. Even if it is painful, you need to go through that process and fix it. Mistakes of evasion or errors of evasion are much more serious, and because that comes down to your fundamental, you are not just disrespecting other people or reality or ignoring facts, but you are ignoring yourself. You're disrespecting yourself, you're disrespecting your functioning mind, your functioning reason. And there's a nice quote here from Galt's speech in Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. So this is the definition of an error of knowledge. So an error of knowledge is not a moral flaw, provided you are willing to correct it. That which you do not know, or that which you cannot help, as in a physical accident, is not a moral charge or verdict against you. Make every moral allowance for errors of knowledge. So give yourself room to grow and have all the errors of knowledge that you want. Because that is not a moral situation. I mean, it can be a moral situation if you don't follow up, if you don't want to correct it. So again, honest errors are not to be shrugged off when you make them because they are just honest. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. I've heard that before. I've been
more than once
bumped into by people, or something happens. Whoops, I didn't actually mean to.
Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Like
it doesn't matter if you.
I'm not asking you to somehow make everything right, but a simple apology. Well, I didn't mean to do it, so why should I have to apologize if it wasn't intentional, right?
Yeah, that's not quite right.
That's not quite right.
That's not cool, man. All right, so you need to definitely still admit them, take responsibility, and you need to learn from them, even if it is bumping somebody else's car. So even if you did, even if what you did was, silly or a physical accident, this does not absolve you from taking responsibility. For instance, for acknowledging anyone who was inadvertently hurt or inconvenienced by your action, you must be prepared to apologize and make amends. So now turning to these two differences, the fork in the road again. This is from the Journals of Ayn Rand. And I really love these. So, in the first case of errors of knowledge, a man remains open to new knowledge, open to the possibility of correcting his error. So, in other words, he's not fundamentally screwing with his reason. He's not disrespecting himself. He's still open to correcting the error and also to gaining new knowledge. And so he's free. His mind is free. It's not repressed or evasive or anything like that. In the second case of evasion, actual evasion, the man has closed the door to knowledge, therefore closed it to correction, and therefore his error and his evil will grow worse and worse. So, errors of evasion are just going to keep piling up and up and up and up until the point where, who knows, the person may actually become a criminal, and the person may be convinced that they are themselves wrong and evil fundamentally, and anything goes at that point. Not a good situation to be in. Here's another great quote from the Journals of Ayn Rand. The joke of it is that his only essential evil is the irrationalist attitude, and that no crime which he has committed in the past and which he is afraid to consciously acknowledge is as evil as his persisting in irrationalism or evasion. It's irrationalism that made his original guilt possible. The guilt and the crime were the consequence of it, but the irrationalism or evasion was the root cause, the root and the cause, the only basic evil. So that's, she's saying, it's the ironic part of all of this is that it started somewhere with one thing, that with his allowing himself to get away with it, allowing himself to be disrespectful to his own reasoning mind. So what do we do at this point? We talked about introspection, and I think everybody here knows what that is, so I'm not going to give a definition of that. But it's basically, I think the fundamental point here is that your emotions and your thoughts, they're facts in a psychological context. In a psychological context, your emotions are valid. Your emotions are real. Your thoughts, just like your thoughts, are real. And you need to deal with them. So yeah, they may not be out. I can't point to my thoughts out there in the world, but I can introspect and see the functioning of my conscious mind going on, my conceptual conscious mind going on. And that's a fact. So this goes into, oh my gosh, I've covered all of this just extemporaneously because I'm that good, guys. My goodness. So, to avoid all of this, the whole idea of, piling up, all these, evasive thoughts, evasive habits, and feeling like you're loathing yourself and you've got self-doubt all the time. And, to avoid all of this, you need to be honest. Honest. So right after you make the mistake, what do you say, Robert?
Oh my gosh, I've made a mistake. That is the thing that I did. Just
like that. And I'd say, don't even say it like, oh, I've made a mistake. Oh. No. I'm going to throw myself off the cliffs of insanity.
No, don't focus on how you feel about the mistake. Focus on the fact.
Yeah, the fact that you made a mistake. And now, yes, you will have feelings after that. But that's why it's really important to introspect, and that it's possible to introspect. It's not impossible, it's very possible.
Yeah, you've got to respect your feelings, but you don't approach them as if they are your thoughts. You approach them like a detective and say, why am I feeling this way?
Yes,
and
exactly.
Use a reason to figure that out.
That is right. You must acknowledge your emotions, but, not act on them. So when you say that, you say it like you mean it. You say it with confidence and the conviction that you will learn from the experience. Of course, the more mistakes you make and the more you learn from them, and that is a habit, the easier it's going to get, and the less negative feelings of guilt and shame and however you're going to be feeling.
Recovery becomes quick.
Yeah.
And relatively painless.
That's right. Yes. So, immediately approach it as an opportunity for improvement. Yay! I know Jen Casey of ATLOS, the Atlanta Objective Society, she liked to use the phrase "yippee mistakes," and she actually did a Chicago Minicon 10 years ago on that very topic. So that's hooray for Jen Casey. Yippee mistakes. So basically, don't hesitate to do what you need to do to make amends. Don't hesitate to apologize. I even say, throughout this, this process, you're going to feel embarrassment and guilt and fear and anxiety. But be objective about it. And the way to be objective about it is to remember that other people have made mistakes, just like you did. You're not alone. So when they see, so when other people, this is my example of like being at work. If you admit your mistakes in front of other people at work and say, I'm sorry, that was my mistake, and and you deal with it in a way that is, you're still comfortable in your own skin, and you're not belittling or berating yourself. And they see that you're confident about knowing how to recover from a mistake, and also to learn from a mistake. You're going to you're going to be the hero of the frickin' day. And I've seen this because I've done this at work. People will look at me and say, "Wow, you handled that so nice," and that basically gives them the courage and some inspiration to do the same thing the next time they make a mistake. And you know what that leads to?
What does that lead to?
A really nice working environment. Yes,
it does. If you can be gracious about your own failings, other people will be less inclined to try to cover up their own.
Yes. So, yeah. So that's basically that particular talk. I did actually add on to this a little bit here. Do we have any questions so far before I go forward with a little bit more advice? Just a wee bit.
No, there were some minor technical issues, or I don't know how minor they were, but
yeah,
folks were letting us know that there was a bit of skipping.
I know Catherine was having some trouble. Yeah. Okay. Good. So.
Yeah. No. Some folks shared their stories.
Oh, nice.
And it's funny because Mary Aline shares a story about she got in a scrape with a car.
Yeah.
In a parking lot situation, and after all these years of a good philosophy and knowing I had good insurance and totally clean driving record and the money to pay out of pocket if necessary, it was surprisingly easy to deal with. Left a note and got it taken care of. I had a scrape like that once when I was young, a teenager, and did not handle it as graciously. That's all I'm going to say about that. That goes in the category of people say, philosophy doesn't change your life. You use it to excuse who you already are. And I always tell people, philosophy changed my life. I was a better person because of philosophy.
Yes.
Well, I won't say in what ways I was a bad person before, but Mary Aline's story certainly reminds me of one of them.
Yeah. That's awesome, Mary Aline. Good for you. That's awesome. I love it. That is wonderful. And I know that when I was doing the Atlas Kahn workshop, where I was basically reaching out to other people, it was such an honor, and I was so grateful for the people who were there. Like, so grateful. I can still feel the energy in that room, whatever, 8 years ago or however, that people were sharing their mistakes. They were sharing their experiences and how they handled it or didn't handle it. And it was such a wonderful thing. It was such a great, trusting environment, and is very benevolent and very, very much filled with goodwill. And boy howdy, I love that. So, okay. So now we get into the current day.
Oh.
We're in the pandemic, everybody, and we're waiting for vaccines.
So you have notes about the current day?
And businesses are failing, and it's all horrible. Yeah. So I decided to add this on because this relates to this. And I think that we could probably talk about this a little bit more, but there have been a lot of people debating a lot of very complex topics. Topics so complex that they don't really have any definite answers. And people have been extraordinarily frustrated. They've been cooped up in their homes. They haven't been, seeing anybody. We haven't been able to be active in the world. We haven't been able to go to the office. We haven't, all this stuff. It's warping our sense of our own efficacy and our own relationship to reality, basically. And people are a little crazy, a little bit angry still. But even more so, of course, 6 months ago. During which times I think that, and I've seen a lot of people argue with one another, and I think there has been a lot of anger cropping up between people who had very solid friendships a year and a half ago. And I think that is something that I've experienced as well. Robert's experienced as well. A lot of our friends have experienced as well. What do you do? What do you do when you have a friend you were really solid with a year and a half ago and you haven't talked to them, or you did talk to them and you argued and it was ugly, perhaps. There are a lot of things here that I will address in a second, but people have been isolated and depressed, and it's been a real strain, a real objective strain on friendships, on relationships. So what we need to do, and this is what I want to do, I want to put aside who's right about what topic. I want to even put aside if there's any answers to these complex topics, and I want to ask myself, what do I want? Do I want to reestablish, rebuild friendships that with people that I haven't talked to in a while, who I may or may not have had unfortunate debates with. So at this point, there's a little bit more hope for the future, I think. Weather's getting warmer, vaccines are coming up, and all of this stuff. So that's really wonderful. So what I did was I put together some I statements for this situation. Here's a definition. An I message or an I statement is a style of communication that focuses on the feelings or beliefs of the speaker rather than thoughts and characteristics that the speaker attributes to the listener. So, and instead of saying, you are a jerk, I can say, I feel bad because I interpreted this particular behavior of yours as being harmful or derogatory. So I started all that with I, and it's my perspective, and it's a little bit easier for the outside, for the listener to actually look at me and say, this is what she thinks. She's not accusing me of anything. This is just how she's feeling, and she's expressing those thoughts and feelings to me. So now I can process it a little bit more objectively. So here's my script. And this is what I would say to somebody, not that I have this situation necessarily, to somebody who I've grown apart from in the last year because of conflicting opinions. Quote, I feel very sad and disconnected from you right now. You were a big value in my life. You were a friend that I really loved to be around a year ago. And now I'm not sure that you are my friend or if you want to be friends anymore. When I heard you say or imply that I was a jerk or an idiot for...
Pick your poison here.
Supporting Trump or wearing a mask or being hesitant about vaccines or supporting Biden or blaming China or attending a political rally or having a party or wanting to be safe and quarantine or taking government epidemiologists seriously or ignoring the news entirely, or following QAnon, or not wanting to talk about the pandemic at all.
Okay, so plenty of examples there, many of which are mutually exclusive.
So again, when I heard you say or imply that I was a jerk or an idiot for these things, that really hurt me. And I thought your opinion of me was pretty low. I thought maybe you didn't ever want to hear from me again. I'd like to work through these thoughts and feelings with you now, or sometime soon, if you're willing, because I hope we might be friends again.
Yeah.
And so throughout this, at some point, either in the beginning or the ending, perhaps the ending, you might want to give them a compliment, and let them know exactly why you like them. This, put aside all of the complex topics of the past year and just say, I like you because of this. I loved being around you because of this. And I thought you were a really good friend to me because of that. And I would like to
whatever that is, real, genuine values, actual values, the reasons you were friends with them a year ago.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, and you might also want to consider going in that you might have to apologize to them. That's another thing.
Well, I love your note here, if you don't mind me reading
Sure.
it. It says, it's up to you if you want to rebuild the friendship, or if, in fact, those political and medical topics really are a deal breaker, You get to decide that. I
Yes,
like that.
You get to decide that.
And more than that, it's up to you in the sense that there are some people, and I'm sure nobody in this audience, but some of us will occasionally think, well, it's not up to me to fix that because I wasn't the one who was wrong. It's not up to me to resolve this issue because they were the one at fault. Now, first thing I want to say is if they were at fault, that's a fact, and you have to respect that. Mm-hmm. But it is an error. It is a mistake to think that the fact that they're at fault means you have to wait for them to acknowledge that before reaching out. That is a non sequitur. That does not follow. You are still driving this train. You are still writing this script.
Yes.
And you can at any time say, even though I think they were the one that was wrong, if they are more important to me than this particular rift, I am going to take control of the situation. I am going to work to resolve this. Mm-hmm. So I love that in two different ways, both the way you meant it and everything it implies.
Thank you.
You are responsible for this. People often say, if I take responsibility for every bad thing that happens to me, aren't I going to be overburdened with guilt and anxiety and overwhelm? And my answer to that is, the best way to feel anxious and overwhelmed is to claim to yourself that you're not responsible for anything and that everything is simply happening to you. Yes, you need to know when somebody else is responsible in the sense of being, the guilty party or the one who's wrong or the one who made a mistake or the one who had an error, honest or not. But never let go the reins. Never let go of the steering wheel. Never take that passive role and say, well, since they were the initiator of what went wrong, I need to sit here and wait and see what happens, or I need to just give up on them.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I would suggest highly, what did they mean to you a year and a half ago?
And were there reasons for that? It's the craziest thing when relationships break up or friendships break up, and people come out the other end not able to see the reason that person was a friend or lover to you in the first place. Mm-hmm. They completely lose sight of the actual values, even if it no longer makes sense for you to be friends or lovers, even if it makes sense to end that relationship, to walk away from it thinking there was nothing good there, it was all bad, I was completely duped. That's a lie. It's a lie to yourself. Yeah. It's a lie to everything that you did value about them. Unless you find out that they really were the opposite of everything that you saw in them. And I would say that even if you think that, it probably is not the case. It's rarely the case. Yes, it can happen. Then you at least have to walk away from it saying, I know what I loved about that person. Even though I now see, on balance, they shouldn't be in my life. So, Amy's full talk will be linked to in the show notes at the end of the show.
Yes, it will. It's a real treat.
If you liked this taste of it, you will like the whole presentation.
Although I'm much better at extemporaneous talking.
But we're running
now.
We are running out of minutes,
yes.
So I'm going to go real quick through the news that I need to share before I wrap up. Mm-hmm. Exciting times. This Wednesday we do have the Clubhouse show. If you have an iPhone, an iPad, or an iPod, or if you have a friend who has any of those Apple devices that can run the Clubhouse app, please join me on Clubhouse at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, midnight UK. I'll be posting about this on the social networks with all of the other some of the other showtimes in different time zones. More platforms are coming to Clubhouse soon. They're working on the Android version. Hopefully that comes out quick. In the meantime, please join us. Number 2, exciting news item number 2. Don't worry, there's only 2 of them. We're ready to bring more interviews back.
Yes.
We're planning to kick it off with two exciting and intelligent people.
Oh, so exciting and intelligent.
We started last year with Quent Cordair and Linda Cordair. Each had an episode devoted to them, and that was
wonderful.
That was great.
So good.
There were a few kinks in there in the way Zoom worked on the platform and just planning and organizing. We're ready to dive back in. So next Sunday is going to be an outstanding episode with our friend Sean. You're going to love this. We will share more information about it as the week goes by. Do not miss next Sunday's show. Additional interviews are planned, and those are going to happen PDQ.
Yeah.
But yeah, if Sean is a teacher.
Yeah. Oh, one thing. Yeah. Oh, you're going to go talk about Sean, but real quick about Sean. Whoever he is in life, he's going to inspire the pants off of you. I mean, not literally.
He will inspire the pants off of you. You will be standing there thinking, "Why are my pants on the ground?"
He is so amazing. Okay, I just say I have very high regard for this gentleman, and he is that. And
to say the least.
Sean, our friend Sean.
Yes.
He is great. So tell me more about Sean, Robert.
Sean Albert is a teacher at the Henry Ford Academy, which is a charter school co-located at the Henry Ford Museum of American Innovation. Mm-hmm. Now, how do we know Sean? Well, Amy works at the Henry Ford.
Yes.
And so there's a direct connection there. And Sean is an extraordinary teacher, but he also has extraordinary stories to share. Mm-hmm. He's extremely eloquent, mm-hmm. and he's just a fun person to listen to.
Yes.
Again, trust me, you're not going to want to miss next Sunday's show. We'll share more information about that coming up.
Yes.
And really, I think all the folks that we're lining up to interview with, and a few that we still need to reach out to, these are going to be great fun. Emily Drake says we should interview Ezra Drake. Ezra Drake has been through all sorts of adventures.
Yes, he has.
Both politically and intellectually with different organizations. That would be a very interesting interview, Emily. You're right. And maybe we can make that happen. But we are running so late here. This might be the longest episode, with the possible exception of one of those earlier interviews. And we should wrap this up. So I'm just going to tell you. I am just going to tell you my homework for the week. Now, usually I say your homework for the week. Well, this week, my homework for the week is to write out my new morning routine. This time I'm actually going to write it down. I'm actually going to get the plan on paper, and I can let you know next week how that goes. If you'd like to join me, if you want a homework assignment, if you don't already have a morning routine, create one. It can be a first draft or a work in progress, but write it out. Write it on paper and then commit to following it for the next 7 days or even the next 30 days. If you do already have a morning routine, just revisit it and see if you can make it not just better, but more fun, more interesting, more empowering. So if you want to join me for this week's homework, I am going to write out my morning routine that is, again, going to empower some of the changes that I've already started this year, but I really need to amp up, really need to bump things up a bit. My Post-it note for the week. Originally, my Post-it note I was going to write down, the problem's not the falling down, it's the staying down. Or the several different ways that has been put. I decided, since I'd already used that in the past, that my Post-it note for the week says, a good mistake is a terrible thing to waste. So that's what my note says. There it is right there. You can see that, unless you're listening on Apple Podcasts or one of the audio-only platforms. But I'm not going to disrespect the audio-only platforms, because Clubhouse, where you're going to join us on Wednesday night, is an audio-only platform. So if you can't see it, the Post-it note says, a good mistake is a terrible thing to waste. And that'll just be a reminder on my bathroom mirror to think about the insights we've shared today and the comments that you've shared with us as well. So we thank you for that. Do you have any other comments there we need to respond to before we wrap?
Oh, just that everyone is so wonderful.
Because it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. It's been a long episode.
It's so great to see you, Marcella. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, we're so glad you're on.
You're so awesome.
That is.
Did you know
cool.
that I have a very high opinion of you, and you're just so sweet, and I really want to do karaoke with you again? Did you know this?
Yes.
Just want to say that.
Yes. Yeah, we need to get down to Florida, and Tom Bisson has posted. On Facebook, he posted a video of some band on stage covering a song. It turns out he's in this band, and I'm like, "Why are you in a band? You're an exercise guru. You're a coach. But no, he's also a rocker." And he posted, he's really looking forward to getting on stage again and playing music with people. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's what I want. So getting together with Marcella and doing karaoke would be a step in that direction too. We need to get on stage. We need to rock out some more. But no more rocking out. We're going too long. Sorry, folks. Thank you for sticking with us. I'm still seeing comments coming in, and I love the fact that y'all are still here After all this time, I think we've gone more than 5 minutes today. It's crazy. So, real quick, recap. I'm not going to do a recap. Post a note for the week you got. Reminder, show notes will be online within 10 minutes after the end of the episode. I need to add on, make sure that I get that. The couple extra things that you mentioned, I did write it down as we were going. If you want to support the show, I've now put links to everything at robertnasir.com. Mm-hmm. So if you go to robertnasir.com, you will find a link to our Patreon.
Oh.
You could sign up for Patreon. You could send a couple dollars to us every month.
Yes.
You could send $10 or $20 every month if you want. But go to robertnasir.com. Find the links there. If you want to make a one-time contribution, and I've got to give a shout-out to Rebecca. Oh, my gosh. And she posted the sweetest pictures on Facebook that kind of made my day earlier. Rebecca and Fernando.
Yes.
Just the sweetest couple, and that smile. But she did make a very generous contribution to the show. I won't say how much, because once you know how rich they are, like, you'll kidnap them and try to do terrible criminal things. But no, it was great fun to receive that, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. If you want to be part of the supporters of the show, financially and in any other way that you wish, go to robertnasir.com, find the links there. Old episodes are available through those links to both the videos on YouTube and Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're on all the platforms. Whatever platform you like, use that platform. Listen to the old shows. If you're looking for a little more of what we talked about today, our old episode number 4 on trust and forgiveness, you can kind of see forgiveness is related. I talked about how you forgive yourself when you resolve a mistake. It's all there. And with that said, thank you for joining us. Oh my gosh. Everybody stuck around so long. We had a few people online that I've only met incidentally on Clubhouse. And this is so cool. It's great. It's wonderful. It's all good. Next week is an interview episode. So, we'll have a couple of themes that will run through it, but it's going to be so good. Mm-hmm. And what we've got planned for this summer, some of it's still too loose to talk about, but it's going to be great. You guys are great. You make it all worth it. Thank you for being here. As always, we wish you success. We wish you flourishing. We wish you happiness. As fans of this show, we know you are in a position to be happier, more successful, more benevolent, more gracious than the average person out there. You've proven it to us. Thank you for that. And as always, from the bottom of my heart and from the deep depths of my mind, we wish you love.